Welcome to this YouTube live session of NDTV where we are going to discuss about why Israel has decided to go for a ground invasion in the Rafah area of the Gaza Strip. The Operation Rafah, which suggests that Israel will go ahead with a ground invasion in the southernmost part of the Gaza Strip, the city called Rafah, which shares its border with the Egypt. Why it is an operation by the Israeli Defense Forces, which will see a huge resistance from the US and other allies. What is the ground situation right now in Rafah, and what will happen if this ground invasion is started by Israeli army in the coming days? So let's get back to the geographical location, the relevance of the Rafah region, that why Rafah is so significant when it comes to this entire war between Israel and Hamas. Now, the Israeli Prime Minister has said that it's impossible to complete the victory against Hamas without the Israel Defense Forces entering into Rafah, because Israel Defense Forces feel that Rafah is the last bastion of the Palestinian militant outfit in the Gaza Strip. Rafah is home to 4 Hamas combat battalions, and Israel has vowed to destroy the holdouts after successes in the north and center of the Gaza Strip. Now, let's see the map of the Rafah area in the Gaza Strip. Now, you see the Rafah crossing. It's called the Rafah crossing because it shares its border with Egypt. That is one crossing which has proven to be a lifeline for the Gaza residents since the war broke out on October 7 last year. From Egypt, the essential supplies of food, medical supplies, and other essential supplies have been trickling into the Gaza Strip through this Rafah crossing. This Rafah crossing is the only crossing available in the Gaza Strip which is not monitored or controlled by the IDF. Rather, it's the Hamas people as well as the Egyptian security forces on either side of the border who control the Rafah border crossing. During the when the war started, when Israel started its ground invasion, Rafah happens to be on the southern part of the Gaza Strip. The ground invasion happened from the northern side, which also has this location called Erez Crossing, one of the border areas between Israel and Gaza, which is monitored by the IDF from the Israeli side. Now, Erez Crossing is also a very important crossing from there. Essential supplies which gets into Gaza from Israeli side makes its way through Erez crossing, managed, monitored, and controlled by the IDF. So when the war started, initially the IDF people or the Israeli forces asked the Gaza residents to move from the Erez crossing, which is in the north, towards the Rafah crossing, which is towards the south. But despite these directives, despite these advisories, Israel is still bombed or is still attacked the Rafah border areas. Many people were injured and killed over there. Now, after attacking the southern part or northern part of the Khan Yunis area and other areas which are close to the Erez crossing, IDF forces have now thought a plan of attacking the Rafah crossing area. Rafah is also home to more than 1.4 million people who have been displaced from the northern side, from the areas of Khan Yunis and the Gaza city area, who fled from that area and moved towards the Rafah crossing or the Rafah area, which shares its border with Egypt. Now, why we are going to sort of discuss this? Why Rafah is the Gaza's lifeline? Why a ground invasion by Israel is evoking strong reactions from its neighbor like Egypt, its ally US, and other parts who are involved or somewhere who are concerned about this operation or the war which is happening for the last 6 and more months. So, for the 2 million people residing in Gaza, there are three main entry and exit points: the Erez crossing in the north, Rafah crossing in the south, and in the south of Gaza, there is also the Karem Abu Salem goods crossing. So there are three crossing points. One is in the north, which is the Erez crossing, which I just mentioned. The other two are in the south. One, the Rafah crossing, which is with the Egypt, and there is another one called the Karem Abu Salem goods crossing. Erez crossing is managed by Israel, while Rafah, a vast territory of mountains and desert, is controlled by Egypt. Israel also controls Gaza's airspace and territorial waters. Rafah is the only crossing that is not directly controlled by Israel. Now, why is Rafah so significant for Gaza? Because it is the primary exit point for the people of Gaza. It also serves as a vital link between Gaza and the outside world. And Rafah crossing also happened to be the lifeline while the war was on. Through the same Rafah crossing, the international humanitarian aid entered into Gaza through the Rafah border crossing. Now, despite all the assurances by Israel in this ongoing war, it has attacked Rafah border crossing many a times, which has upset Egypt. But because that's the main crossing point, people had gathered in the initial days of the war there to cross over to Egypt. And Israel bombed the border crossing itself. Now, that was strongly criticized by Egypt, but later Israel assured Egypt that it will not further attack the border wall or the security zone near the Rafah border crossing. Also, it is the only place through which Gaza people get access to essential items, though the crossing remains shut for most part of the year. But even then, despite not being controlled by Israel, the crossing the Rafah border is not easier for the Gaza resident because it involves a lot of checks and balances. It involves permits, not only by or approval, not only by the Hamas authorities, but also from the Egyptian security forces who are on the other side of the border. Now, in the early days of the war, as I mentioned, airstrikes by Israel had left the crossing in tatters, which had upset Egypt, and several NGO members and passport holders have already escaped the war from the same Rafah crossing from Gaza Strip. Now, since Israel has decided to go ahead with this operation, why it has raised concern levels in many countries like US, Egypt, UAE, and other countries is because all those people who have been affected by this war, who were in the northern side of the Gaza Strip towards Khan Yunis, towards the Gaza city, have already moved towards the Rafah border area. Now, if Israel starts bombing or it starts ground invasion in the Rafah border area, the residents of the Gaza Strip have said that where will they go? Because even in the past, in the initial days of the war, in the initial weeks of the war, Israel kept issuing advisories to people to move from north to south or south to some other location. But despite people following those advisories, they were attacked on ground by the security forces. They faced aerial bombing by Israeli forces even on the ground. So they no more they do not trust the Israeli assurances anymore. So this is the kind of response which has come out from the Gaza residents. Now, there are reports in the foreign media which suggest that thousands of tents have been set up in the northern part of the Gaza Strip now, and Israel perhaps is planning to move the Gaza residents from the north Rafah crossing border area towards the south Rafah crossing border area towards the northern part yet again. Now, this displacement, time and again, this displacement has been happening, which has irked the residents. While they say that despite showing white flag, there have been numerous incidents which have been recorded or reported by the media. Visuals have been reported earlier. Visuals have come earlier as well, that how kids, women, men of all ages, despite showing white flag, despite showing white piece of cloth, walking on foot, they have been attacked by the Israeli Defense Forces. Though Israel keeps claiming that these are all kind of unintentional killing, they were not trying to kill or target the civilians. But this issue has been heavily criticized by Israel's own allies like US and other neighboring countries in the other Gulf or Arab countries have also criticized Israel for doing so. Now, this operation has raised sort of concerns because senior Israeli officials said that significant progress has been made in preparing for the evacuation of the civilian population from Rafah. And according to the officials, Egypt and the United Arab Emirates have set up large tent shelters between Rafah and the Khan Yunis. To that, if the ground invasion happens, it will not happen till the population will be moved out or will be displaced from this particular location of Rafah towards the other areas, towards the northern areas of the Gaza Strip. But this frequent displacement is something which is of larger concern for the Gaza residents more than the security forces in Israel or the neighboring Arab countries. The US the United States of America has asked Israel to reconsider its plan for the ground invasion, but the Israeli officials have come on record to say that they are going ahead with the Operation Rafah, or the ground invasion in the in the Rafah border crossing area. Now, the bigger question is that Qatar, Egypt, and other Arab countries are also playing as mediator for the hostage deal to get the hostages released. The negotiations are happening at very top level. Top officials of Egypt, top officials of Qatar are in touch with the Hamas leadership there to ensure that as soon as this hostage deal is done, all those who have been abducted by Hamas are released. But the major concern for US is that whether this Rafah operation will impact that hostage deal or the negotiations which is going on, and how will the Arab countries react to it, because already more than 30,000 people have been killed, and every day those gory pictures from the region surface in the media, and time and again the Arab countries have condemned it verbally. But will it not further alienate Israel if the ground invasion happens? That would be the primary concern, and whether ground invasion in Gaza will also impact the hostage deal. US officials have seem to be concerned about that, and they have also asked Israel to sort of look for a more feasible option, of which should not ensure civilian deaths or casualties if the ground invasion happens. But perhaps in the past we have seen that Israel has not bothered uh, have not bothered about the casualties, because more than 30,000 people, women, children have been killed already in this war. So it will have to be seen whether this time around for the ground invasion in the Rafah area, whether Israel will consider all the cautions which is being suggested by the neighboring countries as well as the US.